But first, Iran proclaiming advances in nuclear technology today. Iranian state television broadcasting images of President Ahmadinejad allegedly loading the country's first domestically produced nuclear fuel rods into a Tehran-based reactor. This as the Iranian president announced 2 new centrifuges with the ability to enrich uranium much faster. Ahmadinejad also ordering his country to build 4 more nuclear reactors while taunting the West for the efforts to rein in Iran's nuclear program. Ahmadinejad said, quote, "The era of bullying nations has passed. The arrogant powers cannot monopolize nuclear technology. Our nuclear path will continue." And all of the bellicosity mixed a bit, exposing a possible rift within the Iranian government itself. Iran's oil ministry denying its own state media's reports that all exports to 6 European Union nations had been cut off. That report briefly lifted European oil prices to a 6-month high, while here at home, President Obama looking to gut our nuclear missile supply, the president ordering the Pentagon to consider cutting our strategic nuclear weapons to as few as 300 deployed warheads. And with tensions on the rise around the world, this type of nuclear drawdown would leave the United States behind Russia, even China, in the number of deployed strategic nuclear weapons. Well, joining me now for more on Iran and U.S. foreign policy, Congressman Ted Poe, Republican of Texas. He sits on the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. Cliff May, president of the Foundation for Defensive Democracies. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, Fox News contributor Judy Miller. Judy, at the same time, all of this is emanating from Tehran. Also a note going to the foreign minister of the European Union saying that now Iran would like to discuss things just a little more, well, a little more energetically. What are we to make of this?
Well, I think what at least the White House makes of it, and it's what Victoria Nuland said at the State Department today, is much ado about nothing. A lot of braggadocio, a lot of tough talk from Ahmadinejad. Yes, we have slow but steady progress on the nuclear front, but today wasn't it? You know that loading of the homegrown nuclear rods that was done a month ago. So this was just a kind of reenactment of that for the cameras because he needed to sound tough on the nuclear front.
And actually, in enriching of uranium, the Iranians apparently had hit the 20% level of about almost 2 years ago. But at this point, what we can say about that clip is who knows? Because we're getting all sorts of conflicting information from our intelligence agencies, certainly, and certainly from the Iranians themselves.
Yeah, we don't know exactly where the Iranians are along this continuum, but we do know where they're heading, and they're not heading for electrical power produced by nuclear facilities. They're heading for nuclear weapons and the missiles to deliver them. And they keep taking steps and going in front of the cameras, and they're kind of saying, let's see if the world does anything about this now. No, then let's see if we can take one further step. It's sort of a game of chicken. And at least Congress is trying, I think, and making some really serious efforts to utilize more creative and more effective sanctions to really put the squeeze on the Iranian economy to see if that can do any good or not.
Congressman Poe sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, your sense of what is happening and current U.S. Obama administration policy?
Well, the U.S. and the European countries have imposed sanctions. Actually, they are beginning to work a little bit. Sanctions long-term really aren't ever historically successful. But it's obvious that the Iranians, Ahmadinejad specifically, wants nuclear capability. He wants nuclear weapons. He says he's going to use them, and the first one's going to Tel Aviv. When that happens, it will be sooner than later, and we should believe what he says because he is serious about using nuclear weapons, first against Israel and the West down the road.
Defense Secretary Panetta, as you know, Judy, saying that he does not believe that Israel has made a decision on whether or not to strike Iran preemptorily. What are your thoughts? Because Israel remains now completely exposed, completely vulnerable. And Iran is not diminishing its rhetoric whatsoever.
Absolutely, and this is very much, there's a psychological war going on between Israel and Iran, between the West and Iran. But, you know, I just came, Lou, from Oman and from Israel, asking questions specifically about Iran's nuclear intentions and capabilities. The good news from an Israeli standpoint is that, at least in terms of estimating where the Iranians are, the United States and Israel agree, and we all agree that the decision has not been made in Iran to actually go for broke, to go for a weapon. That's the current assessment. Now, it could be wrong, but also the Israelis haven't decided whether or not they're going to strike militarily.
So you concur then with the Defense Secretary Panetta that they have not, the Israelis have not made that decision yet?
I think that's right. As far as
what would be the trigger point?
Well, yeah, that's the problem, Lou, because at the moment, the United States and Israel have different red lines. Right. And for the Israelis, it's a capability. The Americans say if they develop a weapon, we would do the following 10 things. Right. But for Israel, just the capability to break out and suddenly go nuclear in terms of weaponry, that's the crossing, the line of no return.
Cliff, delivery systems become a little theoretical and abstract if you happen to be Israeli. These are very serious threats which can be executed very quickly without a sophisticated delivery system, right?
Yes, it can be, and the Israelis are going to do what they can to prevent that. But I think the most important point the Israelis have been trying to make is, while they are on the front lines, as you correctly point out, this should not be their responsibility. It should be the responsibility of the West and, of course, of the United States. Because if Iran, the leading sponsor of terrorism in the world for years, which has proclaimed that a world without America is obtainable, which writes death to America on its missiles, if they get nuclear weapons, they will threaten that with them, they may use them, and there will be a nuclear cascade, as other countries, Saudi Arabia and many others, Egypt possibly, also do. The 21st century will very likely at that point become a century in which nuclear weapons are used, and we can't really predict where that will be. So the Israelis do not want, they're under existential threat, Iran to make this step, but they also think the Americans should be very clear that we're not going to allow this rogue regime to have these weapons.
Well, while making that clear, we have to have a plan with which we could prevent it.
That's right.
That seems to be the open question tonight. Congressman Poe, you get the last word here.
Well, the greatest hope for the world and Israel and the United States is a regime change in Iran. Let the people of Iran replace their dictator and his radical beliefs. We should vocally support the people of Iran to change the regime. Otherwise, we're going to continue down this road. Eventually, there will be a day of reckoning. First, Israel will make the decision, then the United States. Let's support a regime change in Iran.
Congressman Ted Poe, thank you for being here. Cliff May, good to have you here. Judy Miller, thank you.